Good evening, I'm Jean Casares. Another big day in the case of the so-called Doomsday couple, Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. The pair, members of an alleged Doomsday cult, facing first-degree murder charges in connection to the death of Vallow's 17-year-old daughter and her 7-year-old son. Today in court, Vallow's demeanor had some people raising eyebrows. The accused killer, she was all smiles as she settled into her chair, and this is a death penalty case. She grinned and she listened to her attorneys. She even had what appeared to be a black ring on her left hand, where a wedding band traditionally is worn. I do want to go out to Nate Eaton. He is news director at East Idaho News. Nate, you were in the courtroom today there in Idaho. What happened?
I think the biggest takeaway for those of us in the courtroom is how jovial Lori Vallow was. When she walked into court, she saw me and actually did a double take and smiled at me. Now, I've been covering this story for over 2 years now, and I don't know how she has liked my coverage or not liked it, but that was a little startling to see. And she continued to smile throughout the hearing. And the basic premise for this hearing, Gene, was that the defense attorneys believed that the grand jury should reconvene to talk about some of the charges that were laid out. They're saying that on 2 specific counts, prosecutors combined 2 charges on 1 count, on 1 line, and they want the grand jury to rehear this so that they can separate those out to eliminate any sort of potential confusion. The prosecution does not want the grand jury to reconvene. They say there's no confusion here. It makes sense. There was a conspiracy in this crime, according to them, and the grand jury does not need to reconvene.
You know, Nate, why wasn't Chad and his attorney there? Because this was Lori's motion, but their presence, one would expect, possibly would be there.
Well,
the most notorious mysteries.
I still believe that there is a possibility that she's alive.
Celebrity tragedies.
This accident was entirely preventable.
And shocking crimes.
She had 47 stab wounds.
We realized we had a serial killer.
There is no way this was a suicide.
The boat had been meticulously cleaned.
This woman literally cut her husband's penis off.
There's what you've heard, and there's how it really happened.
New season starts Sunday, August 28th at 9 on HLN.
Well, they were supposed to be there because another motion dealing with DNA was scheduled on the docket today, but late Friday, the prosecution and the defense were able to come to an agreement about that. So Chad and his attorneys no longer needed to come. There was great anticipation. This was going to be the first time they would be in court together. How would they act with each other? Would they look at each other? Would they, flirt with each other, however you would want to see it? But he and his attorney decided they did not want to attend today. I would imagine they did monitor it. It was, streamed live, but they were not there.
I do now want to bring in HLN legal analyst and criminal defense attorney Joey Jackson. All right, Joey, I want to talk about this hearing and the demeanor of Lori Vallow, not just her demeanor, but she was found to be competent to stand trial just 3 months ago. Joey, my calculation is about a year that she was incompetent to stand trial. What do you, as a former prosecutor and currently a defense attorney, assess in her as you watch her in court today?
So a couple of things, Gene. Good to be with you always. Look, the bottom line is that, number one, with respect to the attorneys, the one important thing you tell your client, whether you're in front of a judge or in front of a jury, you're being examined, you are being watched, and there is no place at all with respect to giggling, smiling, etc. These are deathly serious, no pun intended, as a death penalty case, and demeanor and comportment is very important. Why do I say that? Because it's before a judge. The reality is what you do in practice, you do in the game. And so to the extent that you exhibit certain ways and, demeanor or whatever, at this stage, right, how is that going to carry over with regard to a jury? The second issue to be made briefly, Gene, is the one you stated, right? We can't talk about her demeanor without referencing what you did, which is the level of competency. The fact that there was a competency issue to begin with, the fact that there was a delay in this proceeding because her competency was called into question, the fact that there were issues with regard to whether she understood the proceedings enough to move forward is how we have to look at this. Is there something amiss? Well, we know it's not amiss enough to go forward, but perhaps there are still other issues where she's not really up to par. We'll monitor that as we move forward in the case.
We sure will, Joey. Thank you.
Forensic Files is back with all new episodes when clues are few.
There was really very little evidence to point in any direction.
It's up to forensics.
I'm finding mink hairs, but you're trying to use these bits of evidence to help you figure out where it happened.
This one little phone will tell me that there was significant pressure applied to the neck.
To find these killers.
There was nothing we weren't going to do to ensure justice.
All new episodes of Forensic Files 2, Sunday at 10 on HLN.